It's 6 p.m. here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Choi. Let us begin with the headlines. Seoul prosecutors get to work on the latest case to shake up the nation involving a close aide to the president said to have undue influence in state affairs. Multiple investigations are launched and related figures summoned. The ruling Saenuri party demands the resignation of officials implicated in the affair, while the opposition calls for the appointment of a special prosecutor to investigate the case. North Korea's persistence in trying to perfect its missile technology may have backfired. Analysts say the explosion from the latest failed launch severely damaged the launch pad. After President Park Geunhye admitted to having her speeches edited by her close personal friend Choi Soon-sil, the search is now on to find her, and she is currently believed to be in Germany. Prosecutors have also begun to raid the offices of the two foundations that Choi is thought to have set up and managed. Hanwoo starts us off.
Seoul prosecutors raided 9 locations related to people implicated in the Choi Soon-sil scandal on Wednesday. The list of locales included both the K-Sports and Mir Foundation offices, the home of Cheon-taek, who helped establish the companies, as well as the home of Choi herself. Choi is expected to have used her ties to President Park Geunhye to gain an unprecedented amount of sponsorship from conglomerates, and it's suspected that the foundations were given preferential treatment to win contracts for government-sponsored events. Prosecutors are searching for evidence of any classified documents Choi might have received from President Park Geunhye as well, who apologized Tuesday for seeking Choi's advice on her speeches and other documents. But a month has passed since prosecutors first brought the bill of indictment to the Seoul courts, and the effectiveness of the raids has been questioned, as some locations are said to have already been cleaned out. Aside from that, one of the biggest question marks in the case is where the subject of the investigation Choi currently is. There are records showing that she left Korea in September for Germany, where she's believed to be staying with her daughter. A German media outlet is reporting that local prosecutors are also looking into companies established by Choi in Germany, Wiedek and the Blue K. Locals in the town of Arnoldsheim are said to have reported concerns about a hotel that was opened under the name Wiedek Tannhaus Hotel in June, but closed soon after. The mother and daughter are also said to have been spotted living in the city in the past, but German authorities have said their current whereabouts are unknown. Kwon, Arirang News.
Staying with that topic, the 3 main political parties are said to begin negotiations to bring in a special prosecutor, dedicated to the scandal. Lawmakers are united in calling for immediate repatriation of Choi Soon-sil for investigation. Park Geunhye has the latest from the National Assembly.
The ruling Saenuri party has decided to accept the opposition bloc's call for an additional investigation led by a special prosecutor into the Choi Soon-sil case, following a general meeting of its lawmakers on Wednesday afternoon. With the decision, the parties will soon begin discussions on the next steps. The ruling party is also demanding a large-scale reshuffle of the cabinet and presidential office involving all officials related to the case. Floor leader Chung Jin-seok demanded that the presidential office find Choi Soon-sil and her daughter and bring them back to Korea for questioning. Seoul prosecutors say they are presumed to be in Germany, but are not sure of their exact whereabouts.
We will have Choi Soon-sil brought back to Korea and will make her stand in the fatherland at the prosecutor's office. We urge the presidential office to immediately order the repatriation of Choi and her family.
The main opposition, Democratic Party of Korea, said if the allegations are true, it would be shocking for the top office to have been under such heavy influence from someone with such close ties to the president.
What is really serious is that the president didn't just take Choi's advice in private, but a group of people around Choi interfered in state issues, acting like an advisory panel, and the president actually accepted the advice. If it's true, it's like Choi ran her own presidential office above the real one. It's total nonsense.
The Liberal Party vowed to dig into the case, adding that no one is exempt from investigation. The minor opposition People's Party also demanded that all presidential secretaries resign. The party also urged the president to leave her Saenuri party.
Choi reportedly received all the details of the president's schedule and state affairs, and even made decisions on personnel appointments. It's just confusing who the real president is.
And the Assembly's House Steering Committee has decided to ask prosecutors to charge senior presidential secretary Woo Byung-woo with violating a parliamentary law requiring him to appear at last week's audit. Park Geunhye, Arirang News.
President Park Geunhye has spoken on the phone with Saenuri Party leader Lee Jung-yeon regarding the party's request that the president reshuffle her cabinet, which is taking heat for the series of scandals. The president reportedly said that she's aware of the severity of the situation and that she is giving serious thought to her party's demands. The responses come just a day after she made a public apology to the Korean people, acknowledging that she sought advices and feedback from her longtime aide, Choi Soon-sil. Earlier in the morning, the top office told reporters at its daily briefing that the prosecutor's investigation will clear away all allegations. North Korea's recent failed Musudan missile launch proved to be a costly one. Their mobile launch pad was scorched as well when the missile ignited. But according to our Kim Hyun-bin, Pyongyang is likely to keep at it to perfect the technology.
An analysis of North Korea's latest missile launch by South Korean military and intelligence sources has concluded a malfunction in the liquid fuel engine was the cause of the explosion that caused the test to fail. A government official told Seoul-based Yonhap news agency on Wednesday that the exploding missile also caused the launcher to catch fire and was seriously scorched. North Korea launched a mid-range Musudan missile last Thursday from a location near the northwestern city of Kusong. A source within the South Korean government said the missile blew up shortly after leaving the launch pad. Experts have said the launch appeared to have been an attempt to recover from another failed Musudan launch a week earlier. South Korean military and experts believe that the most recent test was conducted with the modified liquid fuel rocket engine, and inappropriate components caused the failure.
North Korea has been failing with its Musudan test launches. The key factor is presumed to be a lack of technology for the components, therefore the missiles end up exploding.
North Korea has test-fired 8 Musudan missiles since mid-April, and all but one have failed.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has been pushing the military to perfect the Musudan, and many experts believe the regime will attempt several other launches in the near future to meet that goal. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Top U.S. intel officials remarked that North Korea will never give up its nuclear weapons, drew strong responses from both the United States and the South Korean government. Seoul and Washington said they stand firm in their belief that their current denuclearization policy will eventually have the desired effect. Kwon So-hwa tells us more.
An official at Seoul's foreign ministry says that the will of South Korea and the United States to denuclearize North Korea has not only remained the same, it is stronger than ever. While also noting that the U.S. has made the same public statement on several occasions. The official was responding to remarks made by Director of National Intelligence James Clapper.
I think the notion of getting the North Koreans to denuclearize is probably a lost cause. They are not going to do that. That is their ticket to survival.
The intelligence chief said the U.S. had options to encourage the regime to reduce its stockpile, but it would require some give and take.
Well, the best we could probably hope for is some sort of a cap, but they're not going to do that just because we ask them. There's going to have to be some significant inducements.
The U.S. State Department issued a swift response. Spokesperson John Kirby insisted that Washington remains fully dedicated to its denuclearization policy and made clear that Clapper's views do not represent Washington's stance. He added that the U.S. is hoping for a resumption of the six-party denuclearization talks once North Korea is able to demonstrate verifiable efforts toward that end. But what exactly constitutes verifiable efforts?
Inspectors have to be able to go into the country and be able to see whether or not North Korea is in keeping with the agreement to denuclearize, should it agree to do so. An example, would be something like what they did in Iran, except in Iran, in the case of Iran, it was a freeze. So in North Korea, it would have to be denuclearization, which is what the State Department has reiterated.
While there are concerns, there is some division within the U.S. on North Korea policy. Some experts say the U.S. intelligence chief's statement should not be taken too seriously, as many things could change because the current administration is on its way out in a few months. Kwon-soa, Arirang News.
The U.S. continues to pressure North Korea on the regime's human rights violations with its latest release of a blacklist targeting North Korean human rights violators. Lee Ji-won has more on the impact of these measures.
The U.S. is planning to release a second blacklist in December of North Korean officials and entities to be sanctioned for their involvement in human rights violations. Scott Busby, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, said at a seminar Tuesday the list will include the names of North Koreans in leadership positions, especially mid-level officials at prison camps responsible for human rights abuses in the regime. The sanctions are aimed at freezing the U.S.-based assets of those named on the list and preventing business with American people or entities. And while they will not bring about immediate consequences for those named on the list, Busby said the U.S. is seeking to use the list to warn the North Korean leadership, officials, and other human rights violators that their actions are not hidden. He added the U.S. is also seeking to sanction foreign companies exploiting North Korean laborers. The U.S. had imposed sanctions in July on 10 North Korean officials, including North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, for widespread human rights abuses, including extrajudicial killings. Experts say although these sanctions do not have immediate effect on North Korea, the regime seems to be pressured by the issue.
The regime has been issuing immediate responses to these human rights pressures, especially when their supreme leader Kim Jong-un is mentioned, like when Pyongyang described the sanctioning of Kim as a hideous crime, the worst hostility, and an open declaration of war against the regime.
The expert added it's likely that the U.S. and the international community will continue to press North Korea on human rights, as it serves as an effective tool for tightening the pressure on the already isolated regime. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Let's shift our focus to what could be limits in the international community's sanctions on Pyongyang for its nuclear missile provocations. One is the surging price of North Korean coal being exported to China. But since the coal is used for livelihood-related trade, it doesn't appear the UN Security Council can do much to stop it. Connie Kim explains further.
The price of North Korean coal exported to China has surged almost 70%, providing Pyongyang with extra funds for its nuclear weapons development. Citing China's financial data provider, the Wall Street Journal reported Tuesday that the average price of the North's anthracite coal peaked at $99 a ton in recent weeks from around $59 in August. The report attributed the price surge to China's restrictions of its own coal output this year and heavy rainfall in July. It said Pyongyang and Beijing's coal trade highlights the flaws in efforts to choke off funding for the regime's nuclear weapons program. North Korea was the third largest coal supplier to China last year and exported 2.5 million tons of the fossil fuel to its traditional ally in August, the highest monthly total on record. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry previously pinpointed a livelihood-related loophole in the current sanctions that has allowed the coal trade between the two to flourish.
Greatest amount of coal and the greatest amount of revenue historically has just passed between China and North Korea. And that is hardly putting in place the kinds of sanctions that ought to be in place.
Some experts say restricting coal exports could take place with a change in the current reporting system within China.
It is the trade transactions for the livelihood purposes. Then the transactions could be authorized. But if we change this reporting system to the tougher monitoring system, probably the coal trade between the North and China will be decreased significantly.
However, the overriding consensus is that Beijing is unlikely to make such a decision, as the Chinese government does not want to see any serious turbulence in the north. The UN Security Council is aiming to close the loopholes in the existing sanctions, but progress is proving slow because of objections from China. China's ambassador to the UN reportedly said Beijing was against hurting the well-being of the North Korean people by closing the loophole. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Coming back to South Korea now, the nation's top central banker called on the government to maintain consistency in carrying out its ongoing corporate restructuring drive. Shin Se-min shares with us the BOK chief's remarks, which come amid continued concerns over Korea's economic growth.
Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol said, alluding to the country's current economic situation. In a discussion of current economic issues with professors and researchers on Wednesday, Korea's top central banker said the government should push for its corporate restructuring processes with consistency, especially now when weak demand and oversupply in the global market are hurting the country's key industries. Referring to sectors like shipbuilding and steel, Lee said economic logic should be the backbone of the government's ongoing reform plans, which should also reflect the characteristics of the different industries that are part of the process. On the country's third quarter GDP growth released Tuesday, the governor said that the 0.7% on-quarter expansion is a regrettable outcome. He noted, however, that the country had managed to continue its slow growth momentum thanks to the government's policies despite the difficult conditions at home and abroad. He also acknowledged the continued worries over economic factors that could further impact growth, pointing to the government-initiated corporate restructuring drive, the effects of a new anti-corruption law, and Samsung's decision to permanently discontinue its ill-fated Galaxy Note 7. Adding to the concerns, BOK data showed Wednesday that the public sentiment figure gauging future economic conditions fell to 80 in October from 83 the month before, and the sentiment toward the current conditions remained the same. The BOK governor also promised that the central bank would take an accommodative stance to monitor the uncertainties impacting the economy, and said the central bank would work to counteract such uncertainties as they arose. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
That concludes this hour's newscast for our viewers around the world. If you're tuning in from Korea, stick around for more domestic news updates. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Devin Whiting with more of your domestic news. Third quarter profits for major Korean companies have turned out better than expected. Today, POSCO, Hyundai Heavy Industries, and others reported positive earnings figures, with POSCO earning more than 1 trillion won for the first time in 4 years. For the nation's biggest automaker, Hyundai Motor, however, things weren't as good. Labor difficulties contributed to a 30% drop in profits. Our Oh Jung-hee has the numbers.
Operating profit at POSCO, Korea's largest steelmaker, has surpassed the 1 trillion mark for the first time in 4 years, thanks in part to a recovery in steel prices in China. Korea's neighbor has seen steel prices surge 50% this year. POSCO announced on Wednesday that third quarter profits came to 1.03 trillion won, or about $908 million, far exceeding market expectations of 790 million. Despite the surge in profit, revenue was down 9% from a year ago. Meanwhile, the world's largest shipbuilder, Hyundai Heavy Industries, reported profits for a third quarter in a row, attributed to cost-cutting. Hyundai Heavy said it made 321 billion won, or about $283 million in the third quarter, compared to a loss of nearly double that amount a year ago. GS Engineering and Construction also saw profits surge from last year. Operating profit for the July to September period came to 37 billion won, or $33.5 million, a rise of 245% from the third quarter of 2015. The third quarter was not as kind to the nation's biggest automaker, Hyundai Motor. Profits plunged 30% year-on-year, largely due to a stagnant global economy and an ongoing strike by its labor union. The automaker said third quarter profits stood at 1.06 trillion won, or $934 billion, the lowest level since 2010. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
In other news, the anti-corruption law that took effect late last month, limiting the size of gifts that people in certain industries can accept, is, as expected, hitting sales and prices of premium Korean beef and other products. Since the so-called Kim Young-nan law went into effect on September 28th, sales of local beef, called Hanwoo, have plunged 29.9%, and the price has fallen about 3%. Sales of another normally pricey gift item, red ginseng, have fallen 36.8%, and the price is down over 22%. The anti-corruption law puts a cap on the value of gifts to people working in government, media, and other key sectors of 50,000 won, or about $45, and also limits the value of meals and condolence or congratulatory gifts. Some analysts had expected consumers to switch to smaller and thus cheaper gifts, for example, a set of 7 rather than 10 dried sole fish, but there's not much evidence of that. In fact, sales of dried sole have also fallen by nearly a quarter. Land prices, meanwhile, have continued to rise this year, according to government data. From last December through the end of the third quarter, nationwide, they're up nearly 2%. The biggest rise was recorded on Jeju Island at over 7%, amid a surge in Chinese tourism and land buying. The Jeju local government last week moved to rein in real estate purchases by foreigners, making transactions of a certain size subject to approval by the provincial governor. But there were exceptions to the overall rise. The cities of Gyeonggi and Ulsan in the nation's southeast saw prices fall by 0.4% and 0.3%, respectively. The Land Ministry attributed that to the difficulties now facing the shipping and shipbuilding industries, which are based in that region. Those are some of the stories we're following right now. Thanks for watching. We'll be back at 8 p.m. Korea time. Bye for now.